It looks like we will have a lot more time to talk about the Clippers over the next month or so. Let's talk about the Lakers first. What do you think they do now after seeing what happened with them last night?
Well, I thought their path to the playoffs was pretty slim a week ago. And I just said, I hate seeing LeBron like this. You know, there's so much pressure on him to perform each and every night. And at this age, you need more help. You know, as you get older, the more help you need. You need other veteran all-star players. So I recommended shutting them down. And in saying shutting them down, I know he wants to play. He came out and said he wants to play. I mean, by saying not completely, but like give him a minute's restriction. You know, lessen the wear and tear on him as they move forward, because it's not about this year as we see currently. It's about the next 3 years that you have LeBron. It's
funny you mentioned that. I think, do we have the old clip, producer Danny? This was more than a week ago. Paul called it. I don't know.
Yeah. If I were the Lakers, I would shut LeBron down.
What?
I mean, like, no, seriously. I mean, he's getting older. He has to do too much for them to win. I mean, just look at, he puts out a triple-double, and they can't win. I mean, just imagine if he really goes out and really exerts himself and has to go for 40.
You're giving up on the season now.
I mean, this season was a wash coming into it. They weren't contending. And when you're LeBron James,
hold on.
They weren't contending from the jump.
Okay, so really, that was still when they could have beaten teams like, I think, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the Suns.
Yeah, but their strength of schedule, it said, it was written on the wall that this team, it was a small chance they make the playoffs.
He's right. They really weren't a contender from the start, but they certainly were expected to make the playoffs. Now, by the way, in Vegas, you can't make a bet on the playoffs because they've pulled it down.
They're keeping their 83% and going home.
The casinos don't want any more action. This morning, when the Lakers woke up, they had to look at the backwards part of the standings instead of the forward part of the standings. They're only 3.5 games out of the number 7 pick. There's 5.5 games without the tiebreaker out of the last playoff spot. This is elementary, honestly, at this point. The problem, Paul, is that the league has set a precedent here with fellow Clutch Sports member Anthony Davis. They have to play LeBron. Yeah, it is under the league rules. But what I think is going to end up happening here, this is going to get really ugly because Lonzo Ball is hurt, although he's getting closer coming back, but he's out. Kuzma's having an MRI.
There's no reason to rush Lonzo Ball back.
Absolutely not. I would be surprised if he plays even for a couple more weeks. Kuzma is having an MRI today. Josh Hart has been dealing with sore knee all season. He was laboring last night. Brandon Ingram is now hurt. Lance Stevenson is hurt. LeBron's going to be the only healthy guy, and he's going to be under pressure by the league to play. So unless there's a injury in quotes, LeBron's going to have to play, and he may be playing with a team that's maybe the worst team he's ever played with.
All right, well, here is the exact quote. You saw it on the bottom there. Last night he said, it would take a lot of convincing from Luke on up. Unless I'm hurt, I am not sitting games. He said that conversation hasn't occurred, but I'm sure it can happen soon. I believe he said that to our Dave McMenamin. And it's interesting, Brian, what you note about their percentages and where they are now. As you said, it is extremely unlikely they really have a path to the playoffs. It's not just guys that they lost last night, it's that they lost to the Clippers, so they lose now their tiebreaker 2-1. It's going to be very hard to see them overtake that. So then you look at the lottery picks. Right now, where they're sitting in the lottery, they have a 4.7% chance of ending up in the top 4, right? So getting one of those top 4 picks. But remember, the lottery odds flattened, and it's really encouraged that race to the middle of the lottery group, right? So if they lose just 3.5 more games and sort of gain that on Washington, as you mentioned, I just want to give you the numbers for where that 7 pick is.
This is
that
big.
would
what
give
you're about
them
to say is very important. I'm listening very closely.
A 32% chance.
That's right.
Of getting in the top 4. So going from 4.5% to 32% of ending up in the top 4, which would get you maybe a top 4 draft pick for yourself, or maybe another trade piece to offer the Pelicans or someone else, maybe Washington for Bradley Beal, someone else
you want to completely
go in
change the talks for Anthony Davis? Get your hands on the number 4 pick. And I realize it's a little bit insane that it is March 5th and the Lakers are already done. And we're not talking about the Lakers in the lottery, but this is where we are, and they can't sit around and be sad.
Well, that's the issue, is that they have to make an organizational decision about what they want to do. You just mentioned their injuries. They really can't afford another week of, gee, let's see what happens, or we're not coming to terms with the fact that we're probably not going to make it. I believe they now have a less than a 1% chance projection of making the playoffs. So if they decide, okay, we can see the writing on the wall, and they really do sort of not put their best foot forward,
right,
they could end up with a 30% chance at a top 4 pick. It's better than
it's time to make a
4%.
business decision here.
Limber up, Alex Caruso.
There you go.
Here we go.